So today we're going to get into, not going to spend a lot of time on it. We talked about God the Sevenfold, of the personalities of the Father, the Son, the Spirit, the middle rung of seven rungs of the ladder between paradise and Urantia is the Supreme Being himself, who's a participant in God the Sevenfold. And then, of course, you have the Master Spirit, 7. You have the Ancients of Days, 21. Then you have the hundreds of thousands of creator sons. Those are the supreme creator personalities, and they're part of the ladder of God the Sevenfold. And emphasizing the fact that when I first read God the Sevenfold, I had no idea how to take that terminology because I get confused, or I got confused, thinking, how can God the Sevenfold be God? And it's not. It is a ladder of the descending personalities of paradise as they work their way into creation, and the ascending mortals who work their way up to paradise. It is a two-way stream of dynamics of going up and down the ladder between Urantia and heaven. And Mike got on earlier. I talked about an artwork that I really liked once, a long time ago, Christian artwork, and it showed a ladder between heaven and earth, and you have angels ascending and descending up and down the ladder, which is probably not a bad way to look at the God the Sevenfold. So today we're going to get into, now God the Sevenfold is of a personality ladder, a ladder of the Father personalities all the way to mortal ascenders as they work their way up the ladder to paradise. But there is remember, we've been talking about the idea of power personality unification or synthesis, taking the idea of power, which is impersonal. And there are two aspects of power. We have the power of energy matter, like Newton would understand power. But there is also a power called sovereignty. And that's a very subtlety, because sovereignty is really the control of creation by the supreme creator personalities. And this idea of sovereignty, remember, Michael, before he finishes his 7 bestowals, is a vicegerent creator son. In other words, he has authority under the authority of the Father in heaven, not by his own. But when he finished his 7 bestowals, he was no longer vicegerent creator son. He was now sovereign master son. He had achieved complete control of 7 bestowals of his own creatures, of his own and mother Nevedonia, her creations, and this idea of now truly having lived his own creatures' experiences. What we're going to get into today now is the other side. Remember, power versus personality. And today, power, there is a opposite side of the sevenfold called the Sevenfold Controllers. And we're going to talk about that today, as well as Havona, and to review the supreme creator personalities, which we now know are the 7 master spirits, the 21 ancients of days, and the 100,000 creator sons. And they are the creator personalities who are working to bring all the time-space reality of the Supreme into perfection and light and life. So let me go in, and I'm going to show you first the diagram of the sevenfold creators, or controllers, I'm sorry. And then we're going to go into, from my lexicon, I thought it would be helpful, once we look at who these are of the sevenfold creators, that we'll go back and read some of my lexicon entries for who these personalities are, who are working the powers. Yeah, so let's go down to the graph. Okay, now it's not as fancy as my God the Sevenfold. I didn't make a graphic out of it, but this is really for looking at. And let's start at the bottom of it, the 7th, the final rung of the sevenfold controllers. These are the universal Father, not the eternal Son. Remember, God says, I am Father to the Son, and I am source of the Isle of Paradise, impersonal. So the Father is more than personal. He's pre-personal, personal, and super-personal. But he is the top, and this group of the universal Father, and the other side, the opposite, the antipodal presence, not the Son now, but the Isle of Paradise, which is the material, non-personal aspect. And then, of course, the conjoint actor, we now know that the infinite spirit is just as comfortable working on spiritual levels of activities as well on non-personal energies such as paradise. Hence the name conjoint actor. He can act both on spiritual and non-spiritual levels, on personal and on non-personal levels. And this top group from paradise, they call this the power pattern activators. This is the energy now that is not going in terms of personalities, but the idea of taking creation, creating nebula, creating all the space activities in the worlds and everything else, that the pattern starts from paradise. The middle one now of the middle rung, as you work your way down the ladder, is not God the Supreme or the Supreme Being. Remember God the Supreme, I'm sorry, God the Sevenfold. The middle rung is the Supreme Being. In this particular case, we talk about the Almighty Supreme, and this is the sovereignty control of the Supreme Power Personalities. So that's the middle rung. This is not as exciting as God the Sevenfold, but it is important because it shows how paradise works its energy into the creative patterns that certainly the creator sons and the mother spirits utilize those patterns to make creation. Now, as we work our way down into the super universes, into the local universes, and then and further down, there are what they call the universe power directors. And as we work our way down, they have the supreme power directors, then the supreme power centers, and then the master physical controllers. So rather than throw this at you, because this is not, like I say, it's hard to get a grasp on these, let's go to my lexicon entries and read what these are, what the Urantia book says about the universe power directors. So let me go up. All right, let me go back down, and we're going to go into the first one. And Mike, since you centered us, I'm going to ask, would you be willing to read my lexicon entry for the master physical controllers?
I'd be glad to. Thanks for asking. Going now? Going
yes,
now?
please.
Okay. Master physical controllers. Master physical controllers are a class of beings who are capable of metaphorizing energy and power. In one of their variegated capacities, they serve as controllers and directors on inhabited worlds of those physical life factors that are anticipatory of mechanical mind. They involve themselves in the development of the pre-living manifestations of material energy, the physical preliminaries of life, in anticipation for the sometime endowment of material or mechanical mind. They elaborate on those energy systems that may eventually develop into the physical embodiments of the most elementary living organisms. Master physical controllers formulate the material designs of evolutionary pre-mind in conjunction with the active life implantation ministries of the assigned life carriers. The physical controllers have charge over the mechanical, non-teachable level of material mind, as these are passively subject to organismal environmental response. In preparation for the functioning of the adjutant mind spirits, the physical controllers activate the energy matter of physical mind in subpersonal living things.
So they're actually prior to the life carriers. They're the ones who actually, I think, start the organic nature of organic chemistry, that the life carriers now implant life to create the most rudimentary levels of life, living systems, like protozoa, very low on the scale of life, but they are the beginning of life. But the master physical controllers on a world, they're responsible for making the preparation of a world to be rich in organic chemistry, to which the life carriers can now activate into living forms of energy. So let's continue on. Could you read the next paragraph or the next couple of paragraphs,
Sure,
please, Mike?
sure. Uh, these beings are the mobile subordinates of the supreme power centers. The master physical controllers are the direct offspring of the supreme power centers. The physical controllers are endowed with capabilities of individuality metamorphosis of such a nature that they can engage in a remarkable variety of auto transport, being able to traverse local space at velocities approaching the flight of solitary messengers. The master physical controllers serve throughout the grand universe. They are directly governed from paradise by the 7 supreme power directors as far as the headquarters of the super universes.
And finish it off.
Not all of these martyrs are persons in the sense of possessing individual powers of choice. But though such response appears wholly mechanistic, it is not. They may seem to be automatons, but all of them disclose the differential function of intelligence. The physical controllers are chiefly occupied in the adjustment of basic energies undiscovered on Urantia. These unknown energies are very essential to the interplanetary system of transport and to certain techniques of communication. When we lay lines of energy for the purpose of conveying sound equivalents or of extending vision, these undiscovered forms of energy are utilized by the living physical controllers and their associates.
One of the ongoing trends here, Mike, and everybody, is this idea that in creation, there are many basic energies that are undiscovered on Urantia. Our physicists know nothing about these energies. They talk about, for instance, space. There's a lot of stuff that cannot be accounted for by the current energies that we understand, all the way up to Einstein and the energies he was trying to understand. The idea that we still have a lot to understand about dark matter and a lot of things that we don't know how they play. We have a lot of question marks about energy. And the fact that the revelator is just straight out, the basic energies undiscovered on Urantia. That's rather interesting that they are telling us this. And it kind of leads us to the idea that as we get more into quantum mechanics and other areas of advancement, we're going to have another Einstein someday who, Einstein spent his life looking for what they call the grand unification theory that took all energies into one understandable center of unity. And he was never able to do it. And I think in this book, we get these ideas that there are energies undiscovered. And we're going to need a physicist, a theorist someday to put this together. So I think certainly within the next couple of 100 years, many of these basic energies currently undiscovered will start to be at least theoretically put into some sort of unity of presentation. Mike, I'm going to stay with you because we have 2 more lexicon entries. Now, these are the power centers.
Okay. All right. Aren't they divided down into sub levels as far as like the power centers? Aren't they divided? Well, I guess we'll get to it. Okay. Power centers. The power centers utilize vast mechanisms and coordinations of a material order in liaison with the living mechanisms of the various segregated energy concentrations. The power centers and their subordinate controllers are assigned to the working of all of the physical energies of organized space. They work with the 3 basic currents of 10 energies each. That is the energy charge of organized space, and organized space is their domain. Power centers and physical controllers undergo no training. They are created in perfection and are inherently perfect in action. Never do they pass from one function to another. Always do they serve as originally assigned. There is no evolution in their ranks, and this is true of all 7 divisions of both orders. Their relation to gravity is wholly negative. Each individual power center is constituted in exactly 1 million units of functional control, and these energy modifying units are not stationary, as are the vital organs of man's physical body. These vital organs of power regulation are mobile and truly kaleidoscopic in associative possibilities. It is utterly beyond my ability to explain the manner in which these living beings encompass the manipulation and the regulation of the master circuits of universe energy. To undertake to inform you further concerning the size and function of these gigantic and almost perfectly efficient power centers would only add to your confusion and consternation. They are both living and personal, but they are beyond your comprehension.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in the Urantia book, isn't it? It is beyond our comprehension. This is the last one, Mike. The power directors, please.
Yeah, power directors. The universe of universes is permeated by the power control creatures of the third source and center. Physical controllers and power directors and power centers and other representatives of the infinite spirit who have to do with the regulation and the stabilization of physical energies. The physical systems of the super universes are mobilized by the universe power directors and their associates. These material organizations are dual in constitution and are known as gravita.
Okay, that's great. So let's get back into the instructional. I thought reading the lexicon gives you a better idea, because if you just get the words, you don't get a sense of it. But this is, remember, here we just read the power directors. They're the third ladder, the rung on the ladder. We started from from the bottom rung to the middle rung to the next rung of all of these three controllers of energy and power. So let me get into here. So here again, let's take a look at what we just read. We're starting again the master physical controllers. That's the lowest rung, and they're the ones right on a world itself, preparing the organic abundance on a world prior to the life carriers to create life. So the master physical controllers, we step up to the supreme power centers, and then we went right to the infinite spirit, the supreme power directors. In many ways, they're like the master spirits on a personal level. And all of it, the middle rung of this energy control of sevenfold nature is the Almighty Supreme. That's energy, power, and sovereignty. And then, of course, the conjoint actor, the Isle of Paradise, not the Son, because this is impersonal, and the Universal Father. So those are, and I put together another way of looking at it. I don't think we need to read this, but I am going to read what it says. It says, you have been instructed in the relationship of God the Sevenfold to the Supreme Being, and you should now recognize that the Sevenfold encompasses the controllers as well as the creators of the grand universe. So these are the two sides of the coin: power dash personality. They're putting both sides together in one term: power and personality working together. Now, along with the personal creators who make up God the Sevenfold, the Sevenfold also comprises the controllers of the material grand universe as well. God the Sevenfold encompasses the power of earned sovereignty that the supreme creator personalities enact in the creations of time and space, along with the full support of the three persons of deity, Father, Son, and Spirit, with the evolving supreme being himself as the middle rung of God the Sevenfold. The Sevenfold controllers mirror this personally functioning of God the Sevenfold with a counterbalancing physical, non-personal control level of this deity association. So it's just the other side of the coin: power versus personality, both sides of the coin coming together. The seven master spirits collectively personalize the seven supreme power directors at the beginning of time, the first tick-tock of time-space reality, and the appearance of, hence their names, the Ancients of Days. The Ancients of Days are not existential beings. They were created, but they were created at the very first tick-tock of creation itself. When everything is potential, there are no nebula at this time. The creator sons and the mother spirits come out and choose their areas of space, and then they start feeding in energy and start to actualize realities from all the potentials within the triodity of potentiality of the absolute the what is it now? You have the deity absolute, the qualified, unqualified absolute, the qualified deity absolute, and then of course the
Universal.
yeah, you got it, Mike. Thank you. So the seven master spirits collectively personalize the seven supreme power directors at the beginning of time, the first tick tock of the clock. And these power directors cooperatively affect their physical activities of power supervision throughout the evolutionary ages of the Supreme, which we're now swimming in these evolutionary ages. In association with the seven master spirits, the Supreme Power Directors created the Supreme Power Centers, who consist of seven major groups, extending from Havona on down the ladder to the local universe systems. The master physical controllers are the subordinate offspring of the Supreme Power Centers. You don't need to know this because, just understand this is organized, that there is a relationship as it's downstep to the actual creation of worlds and activating the organic nature of a world ready for a life period. And they serve in seven different orders throughout the grand universe. Among other activities and functions, these centers and their associates transmute the basic energies, units of energy, the ultimatons, into the circuits and revolutions of the electron. The very beginning now is the beginning of creating stellar creation and nebula and all of this. Concomitantly, the functioning of God the Sevenfold and the Sevenfold creators, both sides of the coin, the cosmic mind appears in order to coordinate these bifurcated, that's an interesting word, activities of personal and physical control of the grand universe. And Mike, I'm going to let you hit this citation here.
Okay. Space Force has been changed into space energy and thence into the energy of gravity control. Thus, has physical energy been ripened to that point where it can be directed into channels of power and made to serve the manifold purposes of the universe creators. This work is carried on by the versatile directors, the centers, and the controllers of physical energy in the grand universe, the organized and inhabited creations.
So we're definitely continue on. This one here is the same.
All right. These universe power directors assume the more or less complete control of the 21 of the 30 phases of energy constituting the present energy system of the seven super universes. This domain of power, energy, matter is the realm of the intelligent activities of the sevenfold, functioning under the time-space over control of the Supreme.
Now, here's some information that they're revealing here. They don't go into it further, but they say of the 30 phases of energy constituting the present energy system of the seven super universes, that they are in control of 21 of these. Now, I'm sure a lot of physicists, if they read this Urantia book, would be fascinated with this. But what we're saying is there's an awful lot about energy, matter, power, all of this that science and physicists today do not understand. And if you understand physics today, there's a lot of things about the universe, like dark matter. They don't know where it all comes from. There's a lot of energy out there. They know that. But even up to Einstein, nobody has a real handle on exactly what these energies are. But it is nice to know that they're revealing of 21 of the 30 phases of energy. Very interesting disclosure.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Now, the Almighty Supreme, whoops, back up.
I have a question.
Yes.
If I'm reading this right and understanding it, you said they're almost into the minutia of creating things, the energy and single cell organisms, all of that. So am I understanding that Michael and the Mother Spirit didn't create the entire universe of Nebadon? It was there, but then they stuck some sort of imprint on top of it, but they didn't create it from scratch. These entities did that.
Exactly. And consider this. Michael,
Okay.
before he came out with you know, the local universe mother spirit to choose Nevedon as a site for creation, went to Havona to pick out all the patterns that
Right.
he personally wanted to enact. So Michael is not the supplier of the energies, but of the plans, of the patterns of. But that pattern has to be worked out, one, with the representative of the daughter of the infinite spirit, the conjoint actor, the local universe mother spirit, or Nevedonia, as some people call her. So in that sense, they're the ones who bring all of this together, but they then have to have the cooperation of these power centers and directors and all of this energy to be manipulated by their choice and their direction to the patterns that they want to enact. Does that help, Boyce?
No, that helps because I wasn't aware of that. But as you're reading this, I'm saying, wait a minute, all these people are doing this, then what are Michael and the Mother Spirit doing? But
Yes.
now it makes sense. Okay. They're
Yeah,
kind of
the
the
plans.
designers
They
and pattern
choose.
makers.
Got the pad.
Yeah, they choose creatively the plans that are going to be enacted. But they can't do it. Now, remember all of these tower centers and controllers and all of that. In some ways, they're almost like automatons, even though the revelators say they are more than just a robot or more than just a machine to do this, that there is something much greater in terms of their dignity of being.
Right.
But that's hard for us to understand because we don't know what that aspect is. Royce, yes.
Yes. Okay, so to go along with that, if Havona has a billion worlds or patterns, so to speak, Michael and the Mother Spirit went and chose of those billion, one of them, or maybe two or three, and put them together. I don't know. But our universe is just one pattern, one way of doing it. We have 7 other universes, but they're all coming from different choices of the billions of worlds and patterns in Havona. So to I mean that creates a lot of variation and difference. So to think that a planet like ours is over in one of the other 7 is probably not correct. It looks completely different in all those places. It's all different patterns, not anything similar to us even.
Royce, I would say the patterns are not of a super universe scale. You're talking 7 super universes as being patterned. It's really the pattern variation is within the local universes, which are very, very, very many, hundreds of thousands. And that's where the true creativity occurs for because every creator son is different. And he's going to enact and choose. And the patterns that he chooses from Havona is not just picking a world out. He's taking patterns from all the worlds together and using it as a paint platform on which to paint all the different colors together. So he's taking all of Havona and all of the originality of patterns within Havona that are represented by the billion worlds and choosing every single aspect that he wants to enact in his now enactment of the pattern creation of the local universe. So we're talking local universe where the true patterning is occurring, not on the super universe scale.
Okay. No, that's a lot. That you're talking about a lot of variation and possible combinations that each one's doing.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
staggering.
Well, and it says that if we get to other local universes, we're going to see different choices of patterns by other creators' sons. And that's that's going to be fascinating. Now, I saw Mike and then Michael. Mike, you have a handout, and then Michael.
It's just, thinking about that, Royce, think about no stone is left unturned. No, I mean, we talk about Jesus of Nazareth, Christ Michael here. There's 700,000 of these fellows.
Yeah.
They're doing all, along with the mothers, and they're doing all of this creation that throughout all time and space, it's mind-boggling to think how it is here, and we think we're so overwhelmed by this, but we're just one of 700,000 of these local universes. That doesn't include the magnification of constellations, systems, planets. Geez, but it's all organized right down to the ultimaton. That's what's so fascinating about this.
We're in good hands. Nothing out there is haphazard. Universe building or grand universe building, creating and outworking is very controlled. Nothing here is left the happenstance. It is very variegated in terms of the individual creator sons and their individual and unique choices of patterns that they choose to enact within their creation with the mother spirit. So I got Michael Hagan and then Vincent.
I see a couple of metaphors in what you just described. Michael invents metaphor of an artist. Mother is of a contractor, a head contractor. Now the contractor and the artist can't do anything until they got a palette, until they got materials. So, for example, Michael has all of these ideas what can organize and beautify and put it all together into a beautiful piece of work. And so all of these organizers and controllers, all they're doing is they're putting the materials out there. They're organizing the basically unorganized space. They need some of this and some of that, and let's make sure that is here so that when they come to do the work, they got something to work with. Same thing with a building. You can't create a building until you get concrete or material. Where does the concrete come from? That's what the master organizers are doing. They're creating concrete, more or less. They're creating physical materials available on demand, but they're out there. You can see them now. And so when Michael comes out and looks at, he says, "Well, this looks like a pretty interesting spot. I'd like to do this kind of thing. And here I see the materials needed for that particular." Now, the other universes are going to have different materials available, because I think the master and physical controllers are looking at a huge spectrum of options needed by different sons to do different things. So Michael may not need something that another controller creator needs. So their job is to put all of the colors up, all the materials up, so then when Michael and Deborah go to look, they go, this looks like a good place to make this happen.
Michael, last week we touched upon the idea of the transcendent level of reality, transcending time and space, of what is transcendent realities, and we talked about the master architects being in terms of having the blueprints. The blueprints are there, but this is the total grand universe structure. The blueprint is in place. Now, within the local universes, that's where we can get the variations. You can build your own house and create it the way you want with the right, architectural features. But in terms of the free echo, the master architects, hence the name blueprint. The Urantia book does not use the term blueprint. But if you say master architects, how do they do anything without a blueprint? That's the echo aspect of the transcendent time and space realities. And then it enters into now the cauldron of the grand universe, which is the center of the deity center of supremacy of time and space. We're the very center of this energy being brought together and being catalyzed from potential reality into actualized reality. And this has an echo effect on the transcendent level as well. That's something we're not going to really cover in this class, but there is our reality of time-space reality in the grand universe is enshrouded with the transcendental level of transcendent time and space. That's a whole different topic. We're not going to go into that today. Vincent, you've been patient.
Well, we're going to solve a worry that I've had about energy. And I saw a reference at a paper 42. Now, if I remember correctly, paper 42 says that energy cannot be created and it cannot be destroyed. Therefore, if it can't be created, all the energy that Father uses is already there. He's not adding to it. And paper 42 says that all this energy can have an infinite amount of manifestations, which I guess this variety we've been talking about, the creator sons. And I guess that variety says that's why we have non-breathers and we have some water people. And I guess that's the individual creativity. But my concern is this. It says that all energy comes from Father through paradise, and eventually all the energy has to be returned to paradise. Here's my worry. We are made of energy. Does he run out of energy? Everybody gets a thought adjuster, which I assume is some type of energy. How much of that energy can be taken from Father? Does he run out? Is he a perpetual motion machine? I guess not, because
Yeah.
all energy cannot be created, cannot be destroyed. All has to be returned. Here's my worry. If out of the infinite amount of creations, Father says, well, I got no more energy, I'm going to have to take back some. Therefore, that's my energy. Anyways, I know that's a fantasy story, but my other thought is this: do we have any indication of scale? In other words, could our universes, could the super universes and whatnot be on such a low, maybe a quantum scale, where it's being run on a AA battery? Therefore, God's conserving energy. But the scale of Father in paradise is really huge, but we're down here miniature-wise using less energy, and there's my other fantasy. So do we have to worry?
Yeah, Vincent, you mentioned something very smart here. I mean, it's a good question, and I do have an answer for you. The term transmutation is very important when it comes to manifestation of energy actualization from the potentials that are within the unqualified absolute. The unqualified absolute is basically a reservoir that has no bottom. You cannot empty potentials from the unqualified absolute. You can go for infinity and never empty the reservoir waters that's available from the unqualified absolute. What happens is when these energies are pulled from the unqualified absolute, the potentials now enter into time-space reality, upon which these potentials are transmuted into actualizations. Now, the Isle of Paradise is basically the controller of the gravity circuits. So they're not looking at, per se, the energy altogether, but in terms of the energy itself, there is within the Supreme Being, and especially within the Almighty Supreme, there is an ongoing transmutation from the unqualified absolute, the reservoir of potentials, and then actualizing them ad infinitum. Now, I think when they say you cannot destroy it, the term here is there is a distinction between potential energy and actualized energy. That does, I mean, in other words, energy does not come from nothing. It comes from a reservoir contained within the unqualified absolute, which is you cannot empty that reservoir for eternity. You can't empty it. There will always be new potential realities available to pull from the unqualified absolute. But I think, you're right to say that energy cannot be destroyed or created and all of that. What they're really saying is the measurement is now the ballast between the black and the red of a book, that keeps account of everything, of the transmutation of potentials into actuals. So they're not distinguishing potential energy as not being energy. It's there. It's just not been acted upon or catalyzed in an actualizing transmutation of transformation. That's my understanding of it. But I'm going to say, Vincent, I agree with you when you take that one statement about that it cannot be created or destroyed. I think what they're doing is looking at the ledger balance between the red and the black aspects of potential and actual. So there is definitely a feeding in, and as it gets fed into the grand universe, it becomes actualized and then becomes subject to the gravity circuit of paradise. Does that help at all? I don't know.
Yes, it does. Thank you. And I guess I'm safe, or we're all safe. But
yes, it is.
42 uses the word limited, that the energy is limited and must come back to where it was sent out from.
Yeah, but that qualification is within the boundaries of the grand universe. Today, there's limited energies out there because it's still growing. It's still being transmutated into actual realities. But the limitation now, again, you're asking really good questions, Vincent, here. This limitation, I would put that on the current scale of our grand universe progression towards light and life and perfection. And today, we're not even close to doing that. We have a limited number of local universes. It's worlds are still being created. Systems are still being created from the potentials of the unqualified absolute. So in that sense, you can measure the energy that's within the containment of the grand universe today, but it is still growing and still transmutating potentials into actuals and then grasped by the gravity circuits of paradise.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Vince. Hey, let me say to this, brother, those are tough questions, and you are absolutely right to ask them. And I'm here working on the edge of my butt here trying to give you answers that make any kind of sense. So I'm doing the best I can to give you some answers that you can work with. But you asked some challenging questions, Vincent, and I love you, brother, for that. Rick.
Yeah, I was going to offer an analogy. Instead of an architect designing and building a house and having to get the material and eventually someone's going to live in it, when you started, my analogy would be for making a car, because we had a discussion kind of like this before. Well, okay, you have to have engineers design the car and people manufacture it, and the end result is an automobile with a purpose of a free will individual driving the car from point A to point B. That individual doesn't have to know how the cars work or to fix it or nothing else, but how to steer it with a free will. Now, if we go back, where does the material for the design to be made? They got to dig up iron ore and wood and plastics and all the other stuff and make it run. That's the level. The creation of that stuff is what, Stuart, I guess we're talking about here. And when we talk about that potential versus actual, from chaos to perfection, to me, I like to maybe give my 2 cents on when you started talking about running out of energy. I thought you were talking about me, Vincent, because I have an ailment that takes my energy away, and I need that physical energy. But when I get into the book and all that, my mind and the spirit gives me a new energy. And so, the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. And these groups discussions in the book, it saved my life so many times because of that. But from a purely material, what we know in time and space, if we create a magnet, where is the beginning and the end of that magnetic field? So in the physical circuits, I kind of understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stuart, if we're looking at the paradise as a giant a form of not only one magnetic field, but how many magnetic fields there? I think they were saying 30 types, and we're only using 21, and even then, those energies and transformations of those energies haven't fully been discovered here on Earth in man's limited knowledge. So my prayer in the beginning is, I know my conceptual poverty, and I think what we were talking about in another group, the limitations of my mind, the things that are beyond our imagination or our comprehension. I pray that I can grasp all of this in a higher level. And as you're talking, Stuart, I thank you, because a lot of the things that you're clarifying for me, I kind of already knew. You know what I mean? Or I haven't, you're a little older than me and you've had more time to do it. Kind of put it together. And I think all of us are in that journey. We're all in our own little car going from earth to, heaven. And we all do the best we can. And we all have to stop and pick up a hitchhiker.
No, you're sharing your grasp of what we're getting into here. And each of us, if I were to ask each of us those kind of questions, everybody here would have different imagery and a different technique of trying to explain what they think they grasp. It's interesting. There's 2 words. To understand is to sort of put it the underlying aspect of intelligent knowing. But then there's a term that's bigger. It's called comprehend. And comprehend literally means like prehensa, to grasp. To comprehend is more than understanding, it is to grasp. And our endeavor here is not to grasp the whole concept necessarily, but to grasp more today than what we grasped yesterday, to comprehend today a little more than we comprehended yesterday, for instance. So I think, Rick, when you share your picturizations of how you're taking all this in, I think for everybody on this page, this is valuable because you're now adding a new way of looking at it with a new perspective that everybody here benefits by, because we can look at what you say and say, how much of that do I want to incorporate into my vision or my perspective of comprehension? So thank you, Rick, very much. I'm going to go to good brother Lee. Lee, you're up.
I had a thought that, if the energy has to go back to paradise, it's not destroyed in any way. It's transmuted and reorganized and so forth, and always goes back to paradise. One thought might be that there's the space respiration. In other words, once energy is created through the ultimaton, which is the smallest unit, if you will, that energy is there, and then it can be used in all these different varieties. But space respiration requires that ultimaton go back up to nether paradise and be recycled somehow in order to stabilize the whole universe. In other words, once the potential energy is actualized, in a sense, space respiration allows it to kind of stabilize and refresh. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but I suspect that it's more of a stabilization kind of function. Anyways, another comment might be the 21 out of 30 they say phases. So phases might mean more of the energy levels. In other words, it could go maybe from the ultimaton all the way up to supernova, to even the potential energies and so forth, all the way up the chain of events, these different phases. And we know that the force organizers and the mathematical physical controllers control this energy on really large scales. And so maybe they're talking about these different 21 out of 30 phases, which is interesting because that means that 9 phases might be up for grabs somehow for people to organize, the intelligent life, if you will, to organize. So that opens up an interesting question there as well.
No, Lee, you mentioned a couple of good points there. One thing I do want to stress, the idea of the ultimaton by itself is neither energy matter or free matter before matter itself. It's one of the down phases of energies of space potency into emergent energies, and then to the looking glass between energy matter as we know it in terms of electrons and protons. Is the in-between looking glass is the ultimaton. Now, they say that the electron is made up of an organization of spinning ultimatons. There are 100, not 99, not 101. There is 100 exact ultimatons within every electron. Now, if you were to take the energy and destroy the electron and the 100 ultimatons would lose their organization and their spin coordination, and it would break down to what they call 10 different phases of electron breakdown until you end up with the ultimaton itself. The ultimaton will never be measured by man or scientist because half of the ultimaton is of the ultimate transcendent level of reality. And we cannot, as scientists, understanding and measuring energy matter manifestation, understand the uncoordinated ultimaton itself. But we can understand the electron, which is the foundation of all energy matter manifestation. So that's an interesting thing about the ultimaton. Royce, I'm going to go to you, and then we're going to get back to reading again.
Yeah. This is all new territory for me. What's curious, though, just listening to it, is that if we're only using 21 of these 30, that's telling me, as usual, spread throughout the book, it's 3 times 7. So you have that principle where to be 21. So you have 3 sets of 7. So, that's a thing that keeps popping up everywhere. I don't know how the 9 figure in, but maybe the 9 is something that's going to be activated or used once we start pervading and living in the outer space levels. Maybe that's something that'll kick in then to create some energy field for that new territory. I don't know. But that's curious. I remember, I think it was in 6th grade, the concept came about in science class that matter cannot be created or destroyed. So I just had that as a stable thing, but I never thought of it in terms of energy. Matter I got, but energy, that's a whole other thing. But it does make sense that it's like if the universe, all 7 are a building, let's say, for a metaphor. Well, anything in there is what it is. If you take glass and shatter it, you may have destroyed the pane of glass, but all those splinter fragments are still there. So that it still exists, but it's just in a different form. So matter in that sense, I get doesn't get created or it does, but it goes through transmutations. You take sand and you take other things, and then with fire you make glass. So things go through transformations. But the energy, that's almost like the electric circuitry within that building. And you can either have a dynamo powering that building and drawing upon that as a source to light things, to use the air conditioning, heating, whatever. But it doesn't get destroyed. It's like the blood in our veins. It just keeps circulating. It doesn't go anywhere. It circulates. Now, but why this goes back to paradise, I don't know. Lee might be onto something where it gets refreshed, it gets, I don't know, purified. I don't know. But matter, I understood. Energy, that's a new one to me, to not be created or destroyed. But your idea of the unqualified absolute, where it's almost like an atomic reactor, or better yet, like our sun, it just keeps exploding and creating more and more, explosions that just generating more heat, more radiation, and everything like that. It does have an end point. Our sun, there is an end point down the road, but at that point, it'll transform into something else. So the universe won't weigh less than that sun now being absent or more. It's just going to take a different form.
Yeah, I want to just say one thing in your discussion. You said a lot of interesting things, and I'm not going to dissect it right now, but you talked about, again, the 21 energies. Those are the energies out of 30 potential that are actually being used by the master physical controllers, the power centers, etc. They're only working on those 21 because that's what they are built for, or that's what they were created for, to work on those 21 energies. What they don't say is where are the other 9 energies and who's involved with that. And I would agree with you that when you go to the master universe, we're no longer going to have supreme power directors, because they only work in time space within the grand universe arena of energy building. But when we go into the transcendent levels of the outer space levels, it's very possible what you just said, that may be where the other 9 energies now become available, not to the supreme power centers, but now the ultimate power centers of the ultimate being's domain of the master universe. And that's just speculation. I don't have a good answer for it. I'm going to go, yes, Carolyn, please. Turn your sound on, Carolyn.
I just wanted to mention where the 30 comes from. It's like there are three types of energy in the whatever realm this is in, and we only have 2 that we deal with. So though it's like 20 and 1, and I'm seeing it as 20 and 1 instead of 9. One of that other set is being used, but what happens to the 9 there?
Yeah. And you know what? This is all based on just that one comment that I read, because it doesn't mention anything more about the specific 30 energies that we don't know, but they do seem to indicate that the power directors within the deity level of supremacy of time, space, reality, 21 of those 30 are being enacted by the power directors, physical controllers, etc. So we're only speculating here, but I think you bring up a good point there. And I still like that kind of idea that these energies, it doesn't mean that other beings may not have access to those 9 energies, but I like the idea that they're just in the current universe age of supremacy, that they are not being used in any kind of transmutation. They are in reserve for the end of the first universe age, when the supreme being emerges in light and life perfection. That now we're going to go on the second universe age of no longer seeking for God the supreme, but God now the ultimate of transcendent time, space, realities, and transmutations thereof. Rick, you got one last one, but I do want to get back.
Yeah, just real quick, you can chew on this. 10 is a very instrumental number, right?
Yes.
Well, and we got 3 is very instrumental. 3 times 10 is 30.
Yeah. Well, they talk about there are, right now we live within towers of 10. There are 10 of all kinds of different realities that we deal with. For instance, there's 100 systems within that hundreds. Everything is based on the decimal of 10 within time space. So time space is very much characterized by 10. Paradise reality is characterized by 7. 1 plus 3 individually, Father, Son, and Spirit, and then 1 of a tertiary nature of 7 total. So you have 1, 3, and 7 are the sacred numbers of existential paradise.
Mhm.
But in the time-space realm, the decimal aspect of that character is very operative. It's an interesting study. I have not undertook all of the details, but I think it is something we can get. So let me go into share screen, because I do want to get through today's class. Let's get this. I'll wait for you guys to come on. You should be able to see it. Do you see it now? Okay. So the Almighty Supreme is the central contributor to the Sevenfold Controllers. That's what we're talking about. In similar fashion as the Supreme Being is at the midpoint of God the Sevenfold. Remember, 2 sides of the coin. Power and personality unifying together, both sides of the coin, now is one reality. Both the mobilizing Almighty Supreme and the emerging Supreme Being contribute to their own actualization in the time-space creations. The physical controllers work to bring the material creations under control, to bring them into sublime balance with the purposes and plans of the personal deities. They do this armed with the absolute mind of the conjoint actor, the infinite spirit, who activates the paradise pattern and thus makes energy subservient to the directives of mind. And Mike, I'm going to go to you here. You got the privilege here to read another one.
Thanks again. Okay, the spirit struggles of time and space have to do with the evolution of spirit dominance over matter by the mediation of personal mind. The physical, non-personal evolution of the universes has to do with bringing cosmic energy into harmony with the equilibrium concepts of mind subject to the over-control of spirit. The total evolution of the entire grand universe is a matter of the personality unification of the energy controlling mind with the spirit coordinated intellect, and will be revealed in the full appearance of the almighty power of the Supreme.
This language, Mike, it's hard. We're getting into some real engineering terminologies and so on. It's a powerful stuff, but when you read this, the revelators are so careful about putting their concepts together and filling it out. They're better than anything I've ever seen. This is worthy of reading over again at some point. Today, I think, hopefully, with what we did, that this makes a little more sense. It doesn't sound as foreign to us. We get kind of a feel. First of all, things are under control, that there are this idea. Spirit and energy matter never interact directly. They always require the intermediary of mind, conjoint mind of the infinite spirit, in order for spirit and its purposes to enact upon the creation efforts of energy matter. And mind is the central part of directing those urges into the actual actions, hence the conjoint actor. The Father is the thought, the Son is the word, and the infinite Spirit is the act. That's the relationship of all three, and that's how important the conjoint actor, the infinite Spirit, truly is. So let me go down. Okay, so let's get into the next topic, because I do want to get all of this done today. This is, now, we talked about how the Supreme Creator Personalities, the 7 Master Spirits, the 21 Ancients of Days, and the hundreds of thousands of Creator Sons. And we're going to talk about the Supreme Creator Personalities and their reliance upon the billion worlds of patterning of possible worlds within Havona itself. So again, upon the organization of the 7 super universes at the beginning of time, the creative deity association of God the Sevenfold began to function. God the Sevenfold is representative of the paradise deities reaching out into time and space to provide a living ladder. I love that idea of a ladder of divine personalities that bridges the gap between creature and creator, between man and the Paradise Father. The Paradise Father is revealing himself to the universes, and he has provided for the perfect platform from which to initiate his plan for perfecting the evolving universes of his own handiwork. And this is embodied in the perfection of Havona. And Mike, I'm going to give you this citation here.
Havona is a perfect pattern of the universality potential of the Supreme. This universe is a finished portrayal of the future perfection of the Supreme and is suggestive of the potential of the ultimate.
Now, these terms here, you guys, especially with this class, this should not scare you. It doesn't mean you fully comprehend, grasp the full concept. But now at least we can put things in. It's not like just listening to a different language that we don't know the words. It just sounds like gibberish, you know? But this now has structure to it. And you do. And that's why I think if you get with this class, and when we're done, to go back to the handout and review them at different points of time, because I think it will be worth your while to do so. Havona is the Father's divine projection of the final evolutionary destiny of the universe of universes. It is representative of all the potentials of finite evolution, creative realities, cosmic mind meanings, and supreme spirit values that are in process of actualizing in time and space. Havona perfectly reveals the symmetrical spirit nature of God the Supreme and the power potentials, sovereignty and power of the Almighty Supreme before the initiation of their experiential power personality synthesis in the evolving universes of time and space. In Havona, their future eternal unity with the Supreme is perfectly foreshadowed as the future perfection of the unified Supreme. Quote, the Havona creation is the eternal and perfect fruit of the spiritual reality of the Supreme Being. That's one to chew on for a while. In the deity realm of the Supreme, the 7 Master Spirits, remember, he's part of the Supreme Creator Personalities. The 7 Master Spirits are the primary personalities of the conjoint actor. There are 7 of them for each, one for each of the 7 super universes. They represent the infinite spirit in manifesting the relationships of energy, mind, and spirit to the evolutionary universes of time and space. They distribute cosmic mind to the grand universe and the Nebadon variant of the Orvanton type of cosmic mind to our local universe. And that comes through the mother spirit. She filters this cosmic mind with a variant that we can understand of an adjutant-minded intelligence. Along with the 7 Master Spirits, there were also created the 21 Ancients of Days, 3 for each of the 7 super universes, a triad for each of the 7 created super universes. The Ancients of Days are the triune rulers of the 7 super universes, whose origins coincide with the beginning of time itself, hence the name Ancients of Days. They're the very first part of creation, the first tick-tock of the time-space clock. They are the personifications of Trinity justice judgment in time and space, and they serve as the sevenfold superuniverse focal point for the mobilizing power of the Almighty Supreme. This evolution of the Almighty is the process for actualizing Trinitarian sovereignty. Remember, sovereignty is part of power, not a personality. Trinitarian sovereignty in the supreme domains of time and space. Because the Ancients of Days are midway between paradise and the evolving worlds, they see both ways. They know that which is existential and that which is experiential, and they coordinate both ways. They're an interesting concept of this. Mike, I'm going to give you this here.
Wow, what a picture.
Yeah.
The Ancients of Days provide the coordinated and perfect administrative over-control of the evolving universes of time and space.
Yeah, I like that picture. And actually, I think they now in the Bible, they talk about the ancient of days, not the ancients. They don't pluralize it. So there is a difference between the Urantia book and the reference of the ancient of days within the Bible, especially within the revelation of John. The commissioning of the complemental creator son, creative spirits, the mother spirits and the creator son liaisons as rulers of the 700,000 projected local universes followed the creation of the Ancients of Days, the first tick-tock of the time-space clock. The local universes are the time-space laboratories. Remember, we talked about the adventure of local universe building and how each creator son takes their own patterns to enact within these time-space laboratories, involving mind experience, galactic adventure, divinity unfoldings, and personality progressions. They constitute the foundation upon which the experiential deity of the Supreme evolves, transmutes from potentials into actuals. The local universes are the starting points of true evolution, the spawning ground whereby imperfect personalities become co-creators. We are co-creators with the Father and with Michael. They can't grow, and the Supreme Being cannot grow without us being co-creators and feeding this now actualization of new realities into the realm of supremacy. So the co-creators of their future selves, as they are to be by virtue of their free will choices. At the same time, the local universe creators, the universe mother, spirit, and creator son, acquire the nature and viewpoints of their local universe children, 7 bestowals of Michael. The bestowal sons illuminate the already existing and everlasting pathways of divinity attainment and progression as these leads through the presence of the Supreme and onward, upward to the Paradise Father. In the establishment of sovereignty, remember that's not impersonal, it is of control over creation. In his local universe, a creator son is also augmenting the evolving sovereignty of the Supreme. When Michael finished his 7th and final bestowal, he gave a huge contribution now to this evolving sovereignty, not just of his own nature, but also to the Supreme Being, of the totality nature of the Supreme. Our own Master Son, Christ Michael, advanced the sovereignty of the Supreme in Nevedon by the completion of his 7 bestowals. And you got another one here, Michael, or Mike.
Okay. Okay. On none of Michael's bestowals did he reveal God the Supreme. But the sum total of all 7 bestowals is a new Nevedon revelation of the Supreme Being.
See, isn't that beautiful? Yeah, I just took that one sentence, but it's such a good one because it emphasizes the fact the Supreme Being and the Creator Sons are very closely related to their evolution towards light and life and perfection. Michael reveals the will of the Supreme through the full combination of his 7 bestowals, and in so doing, he has forever identified himself with the Supreme. He will continue to participate in the actualization of the sovereignty of supremacy in the universe of universes, not just the grand universe, but the master universe as well.
Wow.
And we got another one here for you, Michael.
Okay. And the personal sovereignty of a sevenfold son is like the future sovereignty of the sometime to be completed supreme being, embracing as it does the fullest possible content of the power and the authority of the Paradise Trinity manifestable within the time-space limits concerned.
As you read that, Mike, is it frightening now to read that? I'll get to you, Rick, later. I do want to finish the reading here, and then we'll get into discussion. But Mike, when you read that now, is it easier now to get some comprehension of what they're saying?
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, it's been a revelation in and of itself today. And I'm not trying to give the teacher an apple. I really mean that.
No, well, that's my intent. That's what I've always wanted to do with this class. So Jesus is the perfect and divine example of creator synthesis, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Human nature has become an eternal aspect of his divine nature forever. He will forevermore be identified as both Michael of Nevedon, the divine creator's son, and Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph the carpenter. He is now divinity and humanity in one reality of his presence. Our sovereign Lord is supremely unified as both Son of God and now forevermore Son of Man. With the stage now prepared for the creature supreme evolution, finite mortals soon followed on the worlds of space to begin their long paradise ascent as the pilgrims of time in their quest for the universal Father. In addition, with the onset of the present universe age of creation, the deity realm of supremacy, God the Supreme appears in Havona as a resident, which we said before, of the central universe of Havona, his presence deriving from the Paradise Trinities. I'm going to go into the questions to ponder, but this is just to get you thinking, as we will finish off with some discussion. We are told that upon the organization of the seven super universes at the beginning of time, the creative deity association of God the Sevenfold began to function. God the Sevenfold is representative of the paradise deities reaching out into time and space to provide a living ladder of divine personalities that bridges the gap between creature and creator, between man and the paradise father. So one of the things to think about is, how do the supreme creator personalities function as critical stepping stones on the ladder of God the Sevenfold to help bridge the gap between creature and creator? And the last one, Michael revealed the will of the Supreme through the full combination of his seven bestowals. And in so doing, he has forever identified himself with the Supreme. He will continue to participate in the actualization of the sovereignty of supremacy in the universe of universes. Now, how did our Master Son fully identify himself with the Supreme as a result of his seven bestowals? Well, they're just some thoughts to spark some discussion, but let me stop share. Okay, raise your hand, guys. Any kind of thoughts of what we did today? It was a lot, wasn't it? The full meal.
Yeah.
Gotta take your belt and loosen it up 2 notches. I don't want to have to pick on. Oh yes, Rick, and then Mike. You gotta get your. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. I was trying to get my thing on. At the beginning of this, I was thinking, Stuart, is a thought to ponder. Wouldn't it have been amazing if Lucifer, before he started the rebellion, or just as he was starting the rebellion, that we had gave him this book, right? Now, the wonderful gift that we got to try and expand our conceptual understanding of everything here. You saw me earlier when you were describing the actualization of God is supreme. I went, boom. It's just like they use the explanation that if we were to fuse with our thought adjuster in this life, we go up in a flash of light. Well, when the world enters into light and life, it may be not in the physical flashlight, but in a big, the collective versus the individual. And so I always imagine that at a certain point, when all of the grand universe enters collectively into that light and life, just like paradise or heaven is, then at that point, then would the plans, which are probably already made, would the organization of the master universe begin? But that's what that thing was, and I just wanted to throw those two things out.
When they project from the first universe age now of the deity realm of supremacy of time-space constraint, they say that when the Supreme Being finally reaches perfection and all creation of the grand universe reaches light and life stages, that one, the boundaries between the 7 super universes will disappear, which means now instead of 7 segments, it'll become a new nucleus of time-space perfection. And in the outer space levels of transcended time-space, there are the transcendentler beings who we're going to go out there and interact with. There's an idea of reciprocity. Why do we go out into the master universe and interact with these transcendentlers? Because they have a deprivation. They don't know what the constraints are of time and space. We do. We swim with it. We know that we can't make time go faster. We can't get anywhere we want just by thought. We are constrained by the limitations of time and space. Transcendentlers are not so confined. But what they don't know is time-space constraint. And before they get to Havona in their search for the Father, transcendentlers from the master universe levels, they're going to have to pass through, not directly to Havona, but through now the perfected nucleus now of the grand universe. And it'll be our job as representatives and ambassadors of the Supreme Being to prepare them for this new adventure. In so doing, we give them, but what do we get back? We now get to understand, experience with them the idea of what transcendent time-space reality is. Right now, none of us know this. We are all conditioned time-space beings. But when we become 7-stage finaliters and true ambassadors of the Supreme Being, we're going to go out there, and it'd be like, well, let's put it this way: the first mortal ascender who ever entered into Havona was Grand Fanda, of all the 7 super universes. The moment he went in there, it was like a sperm and an ovum. As soon as he entered into Havona, Havona was no longer a creation of eternity, but now it had energy within it, and it could grow. Grand Fanda, his first entry in there of time-space constraint, getting into the Havona natives, their deprivation is they were created perfect, but they didn't have to earn their perfection. And the idea of now Grand Fanta ending into this reality of the billion worlds of Havona changed all reality forevermore. Havona was no longer static. It was now alive with new potentials of time-space realities enacting themselves within the Havona ascent. So that's a rather interesting idea. But I think in the case of the 4 outer space levels, these transcendentlers, eventually they'll become the first transcendentler personality to enter into the new nucleus of the grand universe perfection. He'll be the first, like Grand Fanda was the first for Havona. And that's just an interesting way of putting it. But I love the Father. All of this has a purpose. Mike, I'm going to go to you, Royce, and Lee.
There's a couple of things. Back on page 10, I think, of your presentation. Havona is the Father's divine projection of the final evolutionary destiny of the universe of universes. So, Havona being the divine projection, the Father's divine projection, everything is settled in light and life, all 7 super universes. I personally visualize it as the grand universe becoming the new Havona for the outer space levels. That's just
the new nucleus.
Personal view. And then this other thing that you said, let me see if I can find. And when I read this, I just thought it was wonderful the way it was put together because it made sense to me. The local universes are the starting points of true evolution. And this is important because it gets down to us now. It's talking about us and Jesus of Nazareth and so on and so on. The spawning ground whereby imperfect personalities like me become co-creators of their future selves.
Yeah.
That's poetry to me. I am a co-creator of my future self. I ain't there yet, as they are to be by virtue of their free will choices. My future self is dependent upon my free will choices. I know this is redundant, but this co-creating thing, I finally recognize we're creature and co-creator. How am I co-creator? Okay, I procreated a couple of children. You know, I do something on this farm, or how do I really co-create? There, I co-create myself into a perfect being eventually, and then in turn, that just I can take that out in the outer space levels. And there was one more thing too. I'm just throwing this stuff out because it was just overwhelming for me.
Oh no, you're doing great, Mike.
When it said, how do the supreme creators function as critical stepping stones on the ladder to help bridge the gap between creature and creator? Well, it's like the stepping stones. It's a stepping stone from one up to the next, and then it's being redundant. That's not what I was trying to think. I had a thought and I lost it. The second, the other point is oh yeah. How did the master son fully identify with the supreme as a result of his 7 bestowals? I think is because he experienced his creation. He experienced Melchizedek, Anadak, material son, and so on and so forth, all the way down to us. And by him doing that, that made him a master son eligible, if you will, as to be to represent the supreme in his universe. So he has an understanding of the supreme because of what he went through his 7 bestowals, which is leading us, planets, systems, constellations, and so forth, to this ultimate settlement and light and life to help in the creation of the supreme emergence. He's just one of 700,000 doing that.
Yeah.
That blows my freaking mind. That's good stuff.
I want to throw one more thing with that, Mike. As a creator son, before the 7 bestowals, as a creator son, his creative prerogatives only interact on the supreme level of time-space. On the completion of his 7 bestowals, he's now a master son, and they say he can no longer just isolate his prerogatives of creativity on the supreme level. Anything he might do now as a master son will also reverberate on the ultimate level of reality. Hence, he can't really control his creative prerogatives only on the supreme. Anything he would do now will have to await the 2nd universe age of adventure. That's an interesting thought, that as a master son, he can't contain himself anymore. He is no longer just limited to supremacy. He is now, along with the supreme being, starting to complete the 1st universe age of supremacy, and then to reach into the next 2nd universe age of ultimacy. Royce,
it's expanding responsibility.
Yeah, definitely. And let me say one more thing about co-creators. We're co-creators, as you just said, within our own destiny, but we are also co-creators of the emergence of the supreme being, and we are co-creators in doing the will of the Father regarding his purposes and plans for all of creation. And we are true co-creator contributors to his purposes and plans. We are necessary, and as his children, as his sons and daughters, he needs us, and he gives us the gift that we actually can be a participant in his purposes and plans and his momentum towards destiny. We are co-creators of that effort. So we work on 3: our own level, the supreme level, and the Father's level. We are critically important on all those aspects. Royce and then Lee.
Thanks.
You two are right on the track I was going. A lot comes into here. You're part of your reciprocity idea, as well as I like that idea that when the sperm cell hits the ovum, at that point, it not only shuts the door on any other sperm coming in, but it changes the very nature of the ovum itself. The ovum was this before the sperm hit it. Once it closes the door, no other sperm can, but the egg itself is now changed to incorporate this new sperm and become something else. Well, so too with Michael in his experiences. At the seventh bestowal, that was like the tipping point. Once he capped that off, he now became a master son. He was no longer just a creator son. He now became a master son. So he himself is now transformed in co-creating himself by adopting and going through each one of those bestowals. He's creating and forging out a new Michael, and he's advancing himself and to become a teacher. But now in his doing that, he's able to give a gift to the Supreme, to its evolvement, with now this new combined 7 prongs, so to speak, 7 aspects of a gift that no one else can give him. Only a Michael could do that by completing his bestowal. So he gives him that also. Like, throw this into your batch of experiences to mix with all of my creatures and all of the local universes I've created. So you not only have the 700,000 creator Michael sons doing this, but every free will creature in all 7 universes. So you have all of that being deposited there as well. And as the Supreme evolves, we evolve. Jesus is probably going to get kicked into another level. I mean, Michael and the extra creator sons, because there's 700,000, but there's actually more than that in creation. So the 700,000 will move forward, and then those 7,001 and however many there are going to go into something else as well. We don't know what yet, but it's all evolving on all these different levels, and each one, in a sense, helps pick the other one up to experience something new and to become more than what it is. And then to help, as you said, coordinate what we're doing with trying to bring about God's plan and our own individual contribution to it. You know?
Yeah, no, I like that, Royce. Listen, we're getting past the time here. Lee, you have the last word.
I'd like to take a stab at the first question. How do the Supreme Creator personalities function as critical stepping stones on the ladder of God the Sevenfold to help bridge the gap between creature and creator? I think God the Sevenfold, with that ladder analogy, is really good because, you know, as mortal beings, we have to progress upward in our understanding of spiritual things. As far as the creator personalities are concerned, at first we have to actually go upward, and we have to go through all the different schools up to the, let's say, the local universe. At that point, we will understand what it is to be, let's say, 1/700,000th of the Supreme at that point. So we've got plenty of growth to go. We go further and further up the chain of events. We go to the minor, major universe, and then all the way up to the super universe level, where the master creators are at that level, master spirits at that level, and only one of them. We will eventually be able to understand that particular one. That's at the super universe level. Now, after that occurs, eventually we will be able to understand all 7 of those Supreme Creator personalities at the master spirit level. And as such, we are creating our own. As we grow, we create the Supreme, which then again allows us to even attempt the ultimate. And so it's all this scaffolding is created as a complete structure of how we progress. And as we go inward and upward toward paradise, we're actually beginning to understand that creature and creator are almost, the lines are blurring somewhat at that point. And after the Supreme is actualized, the whole deck is in a sense reshuffled, and there will be different relationships between the creator, these creator personalities, and us, because we will have all the experiences of everybody in our toolbox, and we will have also probably different tools and different functions. Like I say, the deck might be reshuffled as we attempt to understand the Supreme. So it's all scaffolding, but it's an amazing framework that you don't really get anywhere else in any other kind of material. That's what's so amazing about the Urantia book, is that from a logical point of view, it actually makes sense. It's complicated but simple at the same time, but it makes sense for my brain that tries to parse all this on a scientific level.
You know, Lee, I talk about the Urantia book is what I call comprehensible, but also cohesive. Everything in this book is meant to be there. There is nothing haphazard. It is all connected as an approved revelation to our world. So I'm going to say here, thank you, students. Today was a challenge. I hope I have left you changed and that there is now plenty of food for you to digest and reflect on. And then next week, we'll go to our 6th class, then 7th and 8th. So we still have a lot more to get into, but I love you all today.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart.
Goodbye, everybody.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Good week.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thank
Stuart.
you.
All right, love you all.
There's 2 more.